exactly do it?
Okay, so speaking about my research career, I completed my BSc and MSc with biochemistry as majors from Faculty of Science BHU. And after that, I qualified NET CSR examination, JRF. And also, I also qualified GATE, and then I joined here at IIT Bombay in Department of Chemical Engineering, Biosystems Engineering Lab, under Professor Pramod Bangikar, of course. So, yeah, so initially when I joined, I was very skeptical about like joining chemical engineering department. I got
Mhm.
admission into bioscience also, but
Mhm.
thinking that this lab has good facilities and the results for chemical engineering were like announced earlier, so I joined chemical engineering.
So, could you describe your APS experiences, like starting from your second year, and which APS session do you find it was the most important or the turning point of your PhD program, and why? So,
Okay, so in my opinion, I believe that second APS is very, very important. Because in first APS, as you know, that we have to do a lot of coursework. And what we basically have in our first APS is just a list of objectives, and we have done a lot of literature towards it, but we could hardly get any time to do experiments or to execute the research in most of the cases. So I believe that once you have defined your objectives in the first APS, let's say, of your PhD, then how have you approached toward that in, and how have you sort of built your work, and you have done research towards reaching that objective, is achieving that those objectives, is like you get an idea in second APS. So it's a 1 year time, quite big time, like to judge yourself and how and where you are going. And I also believe it is important because this is a time when you feel that the objectives defined by you in the first APS is not going well for certain reason, then this is perhaps the best time to
mm,
like change the objective, or like redefine your objective. So later than this, I believe that it takes a lot of courage to change the PhD
mhm.
objectives when you already are in third year of your PhD. So a lot of time is
Okay.
already gone. Yes. So I
Mhm.
believe second APS is very, very important. And even in
Mhm.
certain cases, there are people like who join research. Let's say they are not
Mhm.
oriented to do research, but they do join research for some or the other reason. So by that
Mhm.
time, doing experiments and troubleshooting, they figure out whether this career is good for them or not. So that is also the time when you can decide to quit your PhD. So it's well
Mhm.
enough time, you have completed your coursework, and if you feel that you are not made to do research, it's a good exit
Mhm.
time also. So
Okay. Nice.
yeah, so I believe that in my personal opinion, I
Second.
feel that second APS is
Like when you compare yourself right now from the year when you joined the program, what was the change you had while attending these second APS sessions?
so. There are two things, like what kind of help you get from APS. First and foremost is that you get to present your result to somebody who might be working in your field, or in many cases he or she is not working in your field. Okay, so you are getting to present your work in a group or to the person who is not from your field. So you get a very different perspective of your research. So uh, whatever you are doing, you might be feeling that, okay, I'm doing this is the correct way to do it. Okay, if it is not working out, this is maybe the end point of this project. So in those cases, you get a different perspective. Maybe you're not able to solve certain problem, and your RPC just ask you like a very simple question, and that simple question you would have never thought of in your mind, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
sometimes it's like very simple question, but it allows you to like think beyond what you can already
Mhm.
think, right? So in those cases,
Give
it
us a
is very
different perspective. Mhm.
yes. So that is very important. And second thing is that like when you join PhD, right, you were student. Earlier you were student. So when you join PhD, there are many people like who are even afraid of presenting, afraid of like speaking to people, and there are people who are very much introvert and like they are not confident on speaking, right? So it kind of improves your like presentation skills. Maybe in the first APS you will see that you are very much anxious, how people will think, and what you have to speak, and even there are people from very different background whose like English may not be so good, so they are very scared of like APS, right? But in during gradual years you will see that they have built a lot of confidence, and now they can speak a lot about their research, and not only research, maybe they have developed a good communication skill basically. So these are the
Uh, what are the specific criteria do you think the examiners evaluate in an APS session?
they evaluate, of course, the novelty of your research. So whether the like the objective that you have defined, is it an already existing gap in your field. So this is something they will constantly evaluate, whether this kind of work has been previously done, or how is it different that from the previously published result. So and apart from this, they also try to assess what is your understanding of your research question. So you may have certain very smaller research question also, which is like not very novel, uh, but it's a question that is not being addressed, let's say. So they try to evaluate whether what is your approach towards solving that simple research question, let's say, and how you are progressing, and what are your bar and scale to evaluate yourself in that case. So that is one thing. And of course very important thing is another evaluation criteria. It might not be so obvious during initial years of your PhD, but maybe after third APS onwards, examiners do expect that you have the publication, so that towards the fourth year you have certain publication and you can wrap off your PhD by fifth year. It might happen that you are able to wrap up it on time, and it might not so happen also. There are many aspects to it. But in most cases, yeah, they do expect that after third APS, you will have some published.
So, how do you prepare the APS report, and what is the scope of including negative results um, in an APS report or a APS presentation?
Okay, so to address the first part of your question, how do you prepare APS report? So I'm telling you my personal PhD experience. Like APS report preparation was not a headache for me specifically. So in our lab, we used to had like constant meetings with our supervisor. So it is very important uh, that you list down sort of, and let's say you are doing a particular experiment today, or you did a particular, even if you're like a computational person, you are kind of doing experiments, right? Like changing parameters and trying to like get certain meaningful estimates from your model, let's say. So one thing I find it very important is that what I used to do is like I do experiment, at the end of the day I will write all of it down. If I didn't get chance in during the daytime to write it down, I'll just sit and recollect in 10 minutes what all I did in the day, and just note it down. Just simply note it down. And then maybe it's a good idea to relook at it. But I would suggest that just at least list it down somewhere, so that whenever you want to find out something, why I changed this, why did not I do this, you have an answer. You have already tried those things or not. So it's very important. So in my PhD I used to do a lot of experiments, let's say, and many a times in a single day I would have planned 3 4 experiments. So it is very important to keep track of what you are doing, why you are doing, and what results you obtained. So uh, the way I used to deal with it is like I still have an Excel sheet, year wise, monthly wise, day wise, what I used to do. Certain days, let's say, even if I have not done certain thing, I'll just go and write down there. Okay, today I had a headache, so I couldn't do anything. I'll just go and write down there so that you get accountability of your time. So it's very important. And if you do this, you will find that you are always improving day by day. It's not about comparison to anyone. You have to compare yourself with yourself only, whether you are improving day by day or not. So this is the way how I used to judge myself. I used to list down everything. Second very important thing is that try to have regular meetings with your supervisor. Try to find some time. By this way, you will at least prepare a presentation of your work. So if you are preparing like a presentation of your work, even a weekly presentation, then making APS presentation becomes very, very easy in that case. So this is the way how I used to do it. So in my PhD, like it's been, I took a lot of time, 7 years, but during all this time, I do not remember any APS where I was so much worried about writing a report. So I have always written my APS report in a single day. Just
Oh,
because,
nice.
yes, in a single day. And I'll just submit it on time whenever it is required. So it was not a headache for me simply because I used to make PowerPoint slides and presentation in a such a way that it is already presentable. And once you have figures, you know what these figures are saying. So only that you have to write, right? So if you have the result, you need to write what that particular graph is telling. And obviously, and third important thing is that when you make such a presentation, when you make such a PPT, you are already bound to read literature to explain your results. If you don't make PPT, you are never going to read about it. If you look at PPT, your results again and again, you will automatically we have certain questions in your mind which for which you will try to read the literature and then redesign your future experiments. So this is the way how I used to work, and yes, I feel that it's not a big deal. APS is anyway, it's not a big deal. You should always remember that you are not going into a job interview, right? That one time performance will lead you to a job, right? You are going into a evaluation thing, and you are evaluated constantly. Even if it is not APS, your supervisor is evaluating you in every meeting, right? So it's about building self confidence, how you are executing your results. Always remember that you should never work to prepare best APS report or best APS presentation. If you are very dedicated, disciplined in preparing, writing down, noting down your result, you should never be worried about, okay, as if you have to impress somebody. You don't have to impress. You just have to present your results. And of course, you should present negative results also, mainly because certain times if you don't present your negative results, let's say you did 1 year of research and ultimately it's all went wrong. So what do you think? If you don't present, then how do you account for your time? So even that you have to present. You have to present that because the examiner should know that you were not just sitting idle. You were trying certain thing, but maybe it didn't work out, and maybe they will help you uh, in redefining your objectives, or maybe certain methods to achieve those objectives. So obviously you should explain your negative result both to your supervisor and towards the APS more than that. So yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, how to interact with the RPC members and exactly how to make use of them to the maximum way possible?
That's a very tricky question, actually. So ideally, Lokesh, what I feel that in specifically in IIT system, I've seen. I'm not talking about other institutes. IIT professors are quite busy in various other activities. So definitely, if you have to if first of all, if they have certain skills or related to your field, which might not be always the case, like they might be from a different field also, but in case they are from your field and you feel that they can significantly help, then you should obviously contact them through mail and just get an appointment, sir or madam, whether I feel that I need your help here and you could help solving me this problem, and take an appointment and visit them again and again. And second thing which I feel is that even if you don't get a chance to interact throughout the year, during the APS they do give certain comments, right? And many a
Mhm.
times we don't note it down. We
Mhm.
never note it down, and we
Mhm.
remember only it for that day, and then we forget about it next day onwards.
Mhm.
So, what I used to do when I used to give my APS, I would always ask one member, junior, senior, any postdoc from our lab who's attending your APS, to note down what were the question of your RPC members. Okay, because while you are answering or presenting, you can there is a tendency that you might forget because of
Mhm.
s- you are partially anxious, partially stressed, and by the end of the day, you might forget also even that question was asked. So it's a good idea to ask somebody to write those questions. This is the way how I used to do. I used to like tell one particular person, okay, note down the questions for me, and he or she used to note it down, and then after the APS, he or she will give it to you, and then you have those points already. You try to see whether you can find those answers by reading literature or by like talking to your supervisor, if it's not there in literature. And then ultimately, if you're not getting your answer anywhere, then maybe it's a good way to go to that person who has asked the question,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe note it down.
Uh, what was the role of APS in enhancing your PhD work, and how do you attribute it to your PhD Excellence Award?
As such, there is no direct role of APS in your PhD Excellence Award, I would say.
Yeah, how
But definitely,
I was asking how it propelled your research work.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. There is no as such direct role. But let's say if your research is already good, then obviously your APS performance would have been good, right? So it's all about like planning and executing the plan in a very disciplined manner. So here I'm not saying that you shouldn't have fun, right? But you should practice discipline. If you have defined certain objectives and if you have defined certain timeline to achieve those objectives, try to follow that rule,
Mhm.
right? So, and also spare certain time for your other activities. But as far as research is concerned, when you are on experiments or doing research, then be at it. So be at a time, be at one place. This is very important. We feel we are doing it, but it might not be the case all the time. So there may be personal issues, there might be familial issues, uh, there are many aspects to it actually. So I believe that discipline is very much important, very foremost criteria of like how you get good results. And yes, Thesis Excellence Award. Not everybody who has presented good in their APS might have got
Mhm.
Thesis Excellence Award. And there could be other way around also. Not everybody who has got Thesis Excellence Award might have given good APSs. So it's vice versa. Because
Mhm.
there are different criterias to judge thesis awards.
Mhm.
And Basically whether you have from each chapter of your PhD thesis, do you have publications, how many
Mhm.
publication, what is the novelty of your work, and overall what impact does it create in the scientific
Mhm.
community. It depends on all of
Mhm.
that. So that should not be the aim to gain, like to achieve thesis award. If you are
Mhm.
performing excelling good, if you deserve it, you will get it, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
So my final question to you is that uh, what is your basic advice for people in the PhD program and for survival in research?
Okay. So those who are doing PhD, it's very much important, as I said, to be like disciplined. And by discipline, I don't mean that you shouldn't have fun. You should have fun, but at the time you should be dedicated towards what you are doing. Not get kind of just I would say, like, keep connections with the people who are motivating you,
Mhm.
right? So I would say connect with the people who are like you. This is certain thing which many people will not tell you exactly. So
Mhm.
sometimes like like having in a group forcefully, it gives you additional kind of stress because you are not
Mhm.
like them. So try to
Mhm.
be with the people whom you like, who are like you, who will always
Mhm.
motivate you, and as at the same time they will be your critic also, but they will
Mhm.
critique your work in a way that you excel it, not a kind of negative criticism of your work. And second thing is to have a good mental health and physical health also. It's very
Mhm.
important. It's very very important. So usually what happens when in your PhDs, there are people who will not eat, who will not do
Mhm.
any physical activities, and kind of just do results, and at the end of
Mhm.
the day or after certain years of their PhD, they will be having health issues, because of which it is affecting to an extent that you are not able to perform anymore. So
Mhm.
don't ever bring yourself to that level, I would say. Your health is
Mhm.
as much as important as your PhD. If you have a good health,
Mhm.
you will perform well. So that is a very important criteria. Take a break whenever you are feeling that you are overwhelmed, you are exhausted, you are overworked. It's good to work, and sometimes we need to do overwork, we need to do hard work, but it's not kind of balance. You have to keep a cycle. Let's say you exhausted yourself for a week, then maybe you take 2 days break, keep
Mhm.
yourself off from everything and take a break. It's a cycle basically, and this kind of cycle is very important to like enhance your performance. So that's a very good way, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. And other thing, how to, your question is how to sustain in research. So as
Mhm.
you know, it's becoming very very difficult nowadays to sustain yourself in research. You would see that there are very less people now who want to do like postdoc. There are very less people who want to become professor, or who would like to become scientist. There are many aspects to it: the funding by the
Mhm.
government, and the teachers that you are getting, and how good is your company, whether they are motivating you to excel, and
Mhm.
other there are other factors to it, whether
Mhm.
in your PhD you have learned something which is valuable. So I would always suggest that in your PhD, ultimately it's like it's a training program. It's a personal training
Mhm.
and also technical training program. Whether you are able to define objectives and like get the results properly. It might be novel sometimes, it might not be novel sometimes, but whether you, it's about learning that process, the overall
Mhm.
process that you would use like to continue research in future. So it's very very important to learn or acquire certain skills which are in demand. Okay, but at the
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
same time it is unique. Not maybe
Mhm.
so many people know this. Because if so many people are knowing the same thing that you are knowing, then chances of you doing that kind of thing or you getting funding to do that, it becomes very, very difficult. So at least one skill which make yourself stand out from the crowd, you should learn it. This is something that I would say personally suggest. And IIT is a very good place to learn it, actually.